call to order this Unified Development Code workshop for the Board of Directors for May 20th, 2025. Roll call.
Blair.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Allen. Carroll.
Here.
Thank you, Barbara. So with that, Christina, I will turn the floor over to you, and then you can direct us from there.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, Ben Rhodes will be covering the Unified Development Code and where we're at in the process, where we're going, and just kind of a reminder of what that is and how it will look when it gets to you.
Thank you, ma'am. So Ben?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me move the right slide up here. So, as you know, we're talking this evening about the proposed Unified Development Code. After the approval of our comprehensive plan, it was identified as a board goal to work on a UDC. Planning staff has been working on the UDC for a draft for several years now. And so what is the UDC, or Unified Development Code? The short answer is it's a collection of various codes within the city's code book, our code of ordinances, that are consolidated into a single chapter, and a reorganization to help streamline codes that are related to land development into one place, basically like a one-stop shop, if you will. So why do a UDC? As mentioned, this provides the codes into one place and helps with ease of use for the code users and provides a more streamlined approach. We wanted to take this opportunity to update the city codes and modernize them to better serve the community's development needs in the future. The prime driver of this is looking critically at the requirements and focusing on their end results. Our philosophy has also been taking into account the customer's experience and balancing governance with a practicality to eliminate needless red tape that serves no valid purpose. On the right side of the screen, you'll see a copy of the title page of Chapter 35. That will be the new Unified Development Code chapter, and it breaks it out into subtopics, into different titles, and we will cover this later on in the presentation. So as I mentioned earlier, the idea behind the Unified Development Code largely came from the 2022 adopted comprehensive plan, which is basically our city's long-range master plan going to the year 2040. On the left side, you'll see a page that's taken from the plan document summarizing the goals. For example, the first goal, LU-1, addresses strategies for future development. So upon review of the plan, we've identified 15 different goals that were within the 0 to 5 year range that would be addressed through the adoption of the UDC. You see goals listed there in the second bullet. I'm not going to read all those out to you. But you can see they range from various sections of the plan that require code updates on various levels of modernization to meet the visioning that is set forth in the plan. I would be remiss if I did not mention that the update does include provisions for accessory dwelling units, abbreviated as ADUs. By permitting these, this is a big step towards senior housing. Staff is aware of the recent acts that were approved on ADUs, and nothing in the proposed UDC as amended will conflict with those acts. So here we see an overview of the approval process, where we were where we are right now, as indicated on the blue arrow, as you see on the left side, May 20th. So some things to highlight here on the process. We did have a public input session on February the 27th, which was attended by 29 people. Staff received 18 comments. Mostly those were verbal and general support of the UDC. But we also did receive some written comments as well. We incorporated many of these comments and put them forward in version 3.1 and posted those online, as well as a guide on the changes, many of which you've seen at this point. Shortly after that meeting, we did put out a questionnaire to area builders and developers to address any of their concerns or comments. And today we've received 3 responses, but we believe more are coming in on the questionnaire. We will be meeting one-on-one with anyone who's commented so far in the process to explore any of their concerns, comments, or suggestions. And we will do our best to incorporate what we can from any of their comments into the next draft. When we became aware of pending state legislation that could impact portions of the proposed UDC, we did put a pause on the process on March 14th. In fact, if you look at some of the older boards here, the timeline, it won't line up anymore because we had that pause. That was restarted in April once we received word that the legislative session had concluded. Our next step is to schedule one-on-one meetings with stakeholders. It's still not too late to comment and meet with staff. The questionnaire and proposed code have been available for comment online for over 60 days. We would like to also meet one-on-one with any of the board members that are interested. If you have anything that you wish to discuss with us, either in written comments or providing verbally with us. And we can schedule those meetings later on. By our estimation, based on the Planning Commission and Board review schedules, the final reading of the UDC should be in early October. And here you see the updated schedule. We also made that public online. We had an earlier version on there, but this is the most recent version. And I believe we have this printed out for you as well. In red, you see the function of the outreach, whether that was public open house or round table meetings, et cetera. And in the green on the sheet, you see basically the document version, which we're going to cover later in the presentation. So I had mentioned earlier that we would cover more about the code structure, explaining the purpose of the titles of the code. And this is where my inner code nerd will come out, so please bear with me as I go into a lot of the details here. This we'll take a little peek underneath the hood just to see how all this kind of comes together. This is unique to our organization. Previously, we did use titles in the 1990s, but that was done away with when the code was recodified in 2001. Some of you might remember that. So the reason we are proposing to bring these back is to better subdivide the chapter into bigger sections. So you can see the various titles included are currently separate chapters in the code book. So on the right side, you see is a redaction of the chapter table, listing out all the chapters of the city's code book, and everything that is shown to be crossed out in the yellow with the red line through it is to be repealed entirely from the code and then seamlessly incorporated into Chapter 35 and under one of the titles. At the bottom, you'll see why we added the titles and the progression from the chapter down the subchapter and section at the very last bullet there, kind of how that would work. So as far as deliverables to you, we are proposing 3 unique but related documents to cover what is in the UDC. On the left, you see the final copy, and this is what we call in-house the clean copy or the clean code. And this is what it will look like when it's adopted in its final form. In the middle, you see the redaction copy. And this shows all the text that's striked out that's proposed for deletion, and any new text proposed for being added as underlined, which I believe you've seen in other ordinances and code changes that we've done in the past, is the same format that we've been doing. And then the last document is the explanation guide, which goes basically change by change, every single change that was made and why it was made, and for why it was proposed. So in this slide, you see a little bit more on the versioning of the document. We started with version 1.0, which was the initial draft, an attempt to organize the code into a single document. This also included past edits to the signed code that were absorbed into the UDC. In version 2.0, the draft underwent an extensive staff review. This entailed weekly meetings that we would go over and cover any changes with a title after a week's review of each title. Then when we incorporated those changes, that made it into version 3.0. This is what has been presented to the public. Changes have been made with some of the initial comments we received, and that's what's presently online as version 3.1. And then any additional changes, which will include the required required legislative changes coming out of Little Rock, will be added into version 3.2. After we finish up the stakeholders and board one-on-one meetings, we will present the code as updated into version 4.0, and then the Planning Commission, if they make changes, that will be in version 5.0. Finally, you'll see some key dates there in the bottom right. As for stakeholder comments, those will be open until June 2nd. Again, those have been online for over 60 days, so they've had a lot of time to look at that. And then we will keep comments open for the board and Planning Commission until July 25th. So there'll be plenty of time to make some edits in June. And then we will allow, of course, further edits as needed through the approval process. So now shifting gears slightly to get into the nuts and bolts of the code itself, what we're proposing. Each of the slides will cover one of the 9 titles that I mentioned earlier. So for Title 1, this is basically the general provisions that apply to all titles, which includes an extensive definitions section, which is sort of the dictionary used for code interpretation. And we wanted to have all the definitions in one place, but broken out and organized so that landscaping definitions aren't also mixed in with signs and things like that. They're all in their own area. We also added several new definitions, and some of those notable ones included, definition for accessory dwelling units, which is now permitted by state statute. Site distance triangle, neighborhood character and context, which are seemingly similar terms, but they are slightly different. We've defined those. We've looked at a lot of different sign types. There's many different types of signs that are used now that aren't in our code, dimensional letters and halo channel letters and such. So we've added that into our codes. We're defining what a non-motorized vehicle is. E-bikes are becoming more popular now, so that's something we need to be thinking about. We've looked at new housing, such as Charleston-styled house, which is where you have one side open with a yard, where the other side is completely on the property line. And then townhomes, we've added 2 different definitions, explain better what these are and how to regulate them in the code. So moving into Title 2 on planning. This is primarily referring to the Planning Commission. It probably should just be called the Planning Commission title, but it is currently called Planning just in our code book. But it's addressing the functionality of the commission. Changes include removal of outdated legislative references, updating the annual report. Currently, that comes in July. We're going to moving that to January so that it encompass the entire calendar year, not just half of a year to half of a year. And also addressing what was included in the report, such as how many permits are reviewed and things of that nature. So moving on to Title 3. This encompasses much of the administrative procedures for permits. This also includes recent updates to the percentage of changes allowed to the approved plans from 10 to 15%, which was updated as part of the separate ordinance. And so any of those ordinances that have come through recently, they're all going to be reflected in the UDC so that it will not overwrite or undo past approved ordinances. One thing I would like to highlight is the requirement that the preliminary plat with 50 or more lots, or if there is a multifamily development with 50 or more units, need to have a completely separate neighborhood meeting prior to submitting to the city. So this requirement allows for a meaningful dialogue between the residents and the developer prior to formal review process. So the developer will not have to negotiate changes or answer questions or things of that nature during the public meeting, which we definitely have seen that sometimes happen. So this should improve the overall process and definitely improve the communication between the neighborhood and people that are most affected by a project and the developer who can affect what that project will look like. We are looking at clarifying special use permits to run with the land so they don't expire unless there's a specific condition requesting that the use expires. We addressed sign postings to accommodate when applications come in, so there's more time for the applicant to order the actual notice sign. These have to be fabricated by a sign maker, and sometimes there's a bit of a rush to try to get them done in time by the ordinance, so we're allowing them a little bit more flexibility. And you can see what I'm talking about is the picture on the left of the notice sign that you see around on projects that developers have to order before they get started. Finally, we addressed a new right-of-way vacation permit process, so it's clear for everyone what that process is. And of course, this will be compliant with state statutes, but it's just our own city code process of how to apply for a right-of-way vacation, things of that nature. Moving on, let me get a little water here. We're looking at Title 4, which is landscaping. We wanted to ensure that any standard in the landscape code is subject to the green space requirements also in the zoning code. So if there's one that's more restrictive requirement compared to the other, the most restrictive will apply. We are exempting all landscaping at the airport for the new hangars due to the land use not being conducive for extensive vegetation, for clearer lines of sight for aircraft and such that are getting around the airport. We are providing some flexibility for site hardships. We are adding a requirement that 7 or more significant trees, and these are the big trees, mature trees, if they are removed as part of a project, that they would pay either a fee in lieu to allow for the tree planting somewhere else in the city, or replace them on site. And this is to help preserve the city's urban forest and tree canopy as development continues to happen. We clarified that if RDOT denies tree planting within their right-of-way, that the trees would still be required within an adjacent planting strip. We wanted to make sure that any landscaping doesn't block street lights, and with trees, and with improving our maintenance bond section to include 25% of the installed costs. So moving into the sign code, this is Title 5 now. So what you need to really know about this was it was totally reworked over a multi-year process in an effort to bring the code into compliance with federal laws that were clarified by the U.S. Supreme Court. The primary objective is to eliminate any type of content-based regulations where you need to read the sign to say, read what the sign says in order to regulate the sign. It was ruled that such regulations are unfair as they would curtail free speech. In other words, you can regulate the sign's size, shape, location, design, color, those type of things, but you can't regulate the class of sign based off of what the message of the sign says, because that would put an unfair burden on particular sign. There are a few exceptions to that, but generally that's what the rules are for that. When looking at this issue, we modernized the code so it's reflective of the current sign standards used for other businesses. We added a section on interpretation, of course, addressing the content-based standards, and added new tables and graphics to better explain the code. In the bullets below, you'll see we made some changes to the general restrictions to signs, organized them by zone district, define the historic district standards, and addressing how far new billboards can be placed from each other, so there'll be a reasonable spacing between billboards. The upshot of all this is that we wanted to make sure, would not want to make any amendments to the current standards. So the size of the wall sign will remain the same, things like that. But more what we're doing is streamlining codes to make it clearer to how to find certain sign types, especially ones that are unique, as we see shown on the images on the left there. So moving on to subdivision of land, this is Title VI. These are the city's subdivision procedures, so essentially anything that involves splitting up land into smaller pieces. We wanted to add a requirement that developers add a space for future parks if their development has a certain threshold of number of lots, to provide better quality of life to our future residents. We looked at the measurement of blocks, better clarify how to administer block measurements, updated the preliminary and final plat review process to be consistent with other parts of the code. We streamlined the plat submittal process, updated performance bond requirements, addressed easement dedications on lots, where they can go, where they shouldn't go, kind of better clarified some of that. We also removed street design standards that were formerly in this section so that they are housed in a single place. And speaking of street design standards, that is Title VII, I just mentioned. So these were developed in-house by our former city engineer and were made to provide for sidewalks and side paths for new streets, providing a variety of options on available right-of-ways, based on the available right-of-way and street budget. Most of this section is taking the current master street plan and codifying it. And so one thing I want to say is that Unified Development Code is to unify our code. So our current master street plan isn't even in our code book at all. It's a separate plan. So it's taking that plan and actually making it into code, into one section, one chapter. So when we were doing that, we had to sort of codify it a little bit. And what I mean by that is put it into more legislative speak and not remove some educational and aspirational aspects of that plan, because the plan was not written to be like a code, but they had code stuff in there. So we basically stripped it all down, brought out only the relevant things that developers need to know about, and we can have a vision statement somewhere else if we need to have that, but it just won't be in the master street plan. So the master street plan effectively is going to be boiled down to the map that you see on the far right with the street lines on it. And that will, when we refer to master street plan, that will be what it'll be, just a single map. And then anything that deals with street standards will be in Title 7, which is the standard for the street standards section. And so, of course, we've addressed pedestrian improvements. As you know, we recently made some changes to our sidewalk policy, so those will be reflected in the new UDCs, and nothing will be overwritten by the UDC from past code changes. And so moving on to Title 8, this is our zoning title, which was formerly known as Chapter 102. Probably one of the more extensive updates because there just is a lot in the zoning code. So the notable features are the changes highlighted here include provisions for ADUs, which will be in compliance with the state regulations. And if you're not familiar with that, essentially the state says that we have to provide ADUs by right. We can't, unless they can't be prohibited and on a particular lot unless it is violating some type of lot standard like a setback or things of that nature. But so that's what we're going to be doing. We did streamline codes for pharmacies to regulate those in under one use unit. Skipping ahead slightly, we did create a new R5 zone specifically for townhomes because we have found out that townhomes and multifamily apartments are not the same thing. But our current codes essentially kind of treat them the same. You know, they're all allowed and only under R4. With the new R5, this will allow for a more predictable result, knowing what the end use will be a townhome style development and not something else that's not appropriate in a particular area. We wanted to highlight that we have completely overhauled the PD zone. We understand this has been a matter of focus recently on various developments. Firstly, what we've changed is the current PD zone has been left in there as a legacy zone. This means that properties that have currently been approved as PD will still stay as PD, just no additional properties can be rezoned to PD legacy. It's essentially, it stays on the books, but that's all we're going to have is just the ones that are already there. And this is needed so that we still have regulations on the books that can apply to old projects that have already been built. So if someone there asks like what our setback is and they're in zone PD, we'll have something to refer back to that will be applicable to their particular development. However, for any new proposed plan developments, we have created the UPD zone, which stands for Urban Plan Development. And the new zone will allow developers to pick from existing zone districts and make amendments, but follow certain requirements such as for mixed land uses, walkability, things of that nature. And we feel this change will allow for clearer review processes and the development of that the city desires and also maintains our housing diversity and quality developments. Moving on, we addressed bike rack parking for businesses, requirements for connecting parking lots between businesses, and improving dumpster design standards. There was a whole list from sanitation. We included that in there. So, and then on the picture there, you could just see that's an example of one of the accessory dwelling units up on the top left there. And then the final slide here we have is on the legal matters that we need to address that were just sort of within the code. We just went ahead and put that in its own title. One thing is making sure it's stated it's unlawful to construct on non-conforming lots that were not in some way accepted legally by the city as a buildable lot. And then we also updated some of the penalty sections, which are existing in the code. We're just basically putting them all in one place. And then we updated the numbering section to be consistent throughout Chapter 35. So with that, thank you for bearing with me through all that. That was a lot to go over, but we're happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. So directors, comments or questions from you?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David?
Ben, on the sign code changes, I know, and this is going back years, many, many years ago when it got changed on height requirements on, mainly on the bypass. Is that still in our code now? Because it seems like that was a big change and a lot of uproar. I don't know if it was, I guess, the 90s, mid-90s, but are we still following height requirements in our code now?
We are, yes.
It seems like over the years, I've seen some that obviously violated. Doomsday Coffee is one that goes well above what the other, whenever it happened, many years ago, whenever it happened, a lot of the big businesses had to, if they built a new sign, had to reduce the height. And I just didn't know if we still had that. And then on the thing on the flagpole lots, you said we're limiting it to 3. How many are we allowed now on a flagpole lot? Is it?
We don't have any.
Don't have a number.
A number. We just have to kind of base on our judgment. This is part of the reason why we're putting in codes, because sometimes there isn't anything like, can we have 2? Can we have 10? I mean, how many is too many, you know? And so 3 we felt was a reasonable number on one access. So.
How could you have, I mean, a flagpole lot is so odd. I'd never even heard of it until Reed brought it up one time and said that is more and more common nowadays. And I had to have somebody explain how it's shaped and everything. How can you have, if the pole part of the lot is supposed to be the drive or the substitute street or whatever, how can you have more than, I mean, you said 10. I mean, that seems going overboard.
Well, the best example is on Helena Street. There's one, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's on the east side of Mount Olive, up on Helena. And there was, what had happened, it was the lot was so deep. You know, some of these lots,
I remember.
just kind of get, they're odd shape because, you know, subdivisions come in after the fact and ownerships, they own, you know, so many acres. And so this person had a very narrow but extremely deep lot.
I remember that house got built
Yeah.
behind the front
And so
house.
then they thought, well, we could fit another house behind that
Never
house. And
understood
it's
how that happened, but
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
sense now with the flagpole. I didn't quite get it, but so have you seen more than
We
one or
have-
2 or 3? I mean,
There was one on Washington, no, not Washington, South Mount Olive, south of Lake Francis. There's another lot there where they're trying something similar, and we've been kind of bluffing into saying, well, you know, you can only do so much. You know,
seems odd,
And,
yeah.
and well, I mean, there's other concerns, traffic safety, and you know, other things that we can hold to that prevent you know something crazy from happening. But what this is doing is really stating that no, this is the hard number, and you know, this is what we feel is acceptable. So
I didn't know if you had seen 3 somewhere else or I mean, I didn't know if we had, until you said that we didn't really have any rule because it's fairly new. But did 3 come to mind like as an example somewhere else, or I just curious?
it's from my personal experiences doing planning for a
Okay.
while, as well as what other cities are doing. I mean, Chris, would you have anything to add on to that?
Chris Paxton, I'm the Director of Administrative Services, and I would just add that one of the things that we look at is when you start adding more houses or more structures to these flagpole lots, it also goes through the fire departments, the fire marshal's review, so they have to assess that for that public safety. And when you start having more traffic and more, especially when these are less than 20 feet, you know, we have to ensure that the access to get to these meets those fire codes, and I just think I would just throw that in.
Do you ever have on a multiple house flagpole lot where they're owned by different people, and how would that work in terms of, or are they always owned by the same person? The home, the actual home itself?
I have seen it both ways. Usually you'd have an access easement or a shared ingress egress easement that would go into
Okay.
these areas, but they would, once you get so deep away from the primary right-of-way, that's when those fire codes start kicking in. There's certain distances based off of the amount of homes that are in these areas. I kind of agree with Ben's assessment. It's really a matter of professional preference with the three. It's not necessarily a set specific number, but I think that would be a good place to start. And then if we see a need in the future to change it, then that's something we could look at again.
We can certainly always update, and of course, there's variances as well,
Yeah.
if there's need to be.
Thank
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So along those notes, you have a great example off Jefferson Street in an older part of town where you've approved it. It's real funky with a utility easement, which is going to haunt you probably in the future for access. My concern on signs is we don't want to be a billboard town. So as we drive down 412, is this going to address curbing that? Because you go, let's point out areas of Springdale before they caught a hold of it. It gets ugly. I don't want to take away revenue because I've used those services before. Not often. I get it, but my concern is, we don't want to become a billboard town on 412 because when the bypass goes in one day, we're going to be stuck with them because they're going to move all the billboards to the bypass. So that's my concern there. And then where are we at on the most extensive one, which is Title 8 on zoning? I'm a big fan of this. My concern is this can your spouse build one for you and then you're kicked out of your house? Is that how that works?
You mean like a tiny home?
It's a-
Is the reference to the ADUs?
Yeah.
The accessory dwelling units, they're typically referred to commonly as grandparent pads or grandfather pads, or there's lots of different nicknames for those, but typically the
Granny flats.
granny flats, different stuff like that. But yes, they could be used for different purposes, such as that. If you get kicked out of the house, then there's a place for you to go. But generally speaking, the state has come in and provided some pretty limiting regulations that we'll have to abide by. And I believe we do have one of our planners going to a conference tomorrow to get additional information to ensure that we are going to be in compliance. But we believe at this point that our proposal complies with the state's upcoming statute that will take effect soon. Generally speaking, those do fall in the back, the behind the front of the structure, and that they would generally add to the appeal of the structure. However, the state, I believe, also may have some limitations on some of our design control over those too. Similar to residential developments, they took away the city's ability to regulate what those look like, not just that we have the ability to say yes or no to those. We will have to say yes to those in certain zoning districts, but they also have removed our ability to do design regulations for those. On that note, though, I think that those are a step forward with some of the board's goals on senior housing. So that kind of does align with some of the city's goals. So that's good because as a lot of people know, we do have a shortage of senior housing, and a lot of these do get used as single-family, smaller options, like a kitchenette. ADUs typically could either be one large grand room with separate bathroom, or it would be a single room. I think Ben could probably give you some of the details on what we have defined that as and what our limitations could be.
Yeah, Chris is correct. Essentially, we were proposing some caveats such as, limiting where balconies could be located so they wouldn't overlook on neighboring homes and trying to match architectural styles and things like that. Most of that's been stripped at this point because it's just not compliant with what the state states. They're very black and white about it. I'm not necessarily feeling that's a bad thing, but it's just we don't have that tool in our toolkit anymore. to address those particular concerns. But I do hope that the general concept of ADUs would greatly improve the community in several regards, not only allowing for the senior housing so people can live with their children, on site, but in a separate unit, which is a big deal, but also allows what we kind of call soft density or hidden density. So, you have your typical subdivision, say you have a 300 lot subdivision on the edge of town, that, is out on the outskirts, maybe not very walkable, have to get way out to get to there. You could potentially get those same 300 units right in the middle of town just by allowing ADUs. So it's addressing housing on a different level, which I think will be really good for our community. So
I agree. I really see it, I don't want to say in the core of Siloam, but in the old area of Siloam, because you just talked about we've got a bunch of funky lots out there that are really cut up and, apply to that. I am concerned that we can allow, we don't have control, an example in the historical district, because you could really go out to left field and we're going to hear about it, going out in the future. But does this blend in also with mixed use density? Is this part of the mixed use density concept, or?
Yes, I
You
think
mentioned the soft side.
it's
so.
one piece of the puzzle for sure. Yeah.
And I would add, you did mention the historic district. The historic district may have additional guidelines, and that's one of the questions that we're going to approach is historic districts typically have guidelines that may supersede other requirements with the state. So one of the things that we're looking into is whether or not the historic district guidelines would supersede the state statute that would allow us to make sure that within the historic district that they would that would allow us to have those historic district guidelines apply to these ADUs.
I just know, like with, I keep using Bunker as an example because he's the, kind of the footprint of that concept. But doing that infill and trying to reduce their urban sprawl. I mean, I think that's the thing when you drive around Siloam, it just, seeing that sprawl happening because builders don't have any other tools in the toolbox. That's what they're working with. So, that's the hope of this concept anyway. Thank you.
And just circling back on your question about billboards, we're not prohibiting them entirely, but we are saying that there's going to be one for every 1,500 linear feet. So we're not going to get the future billboards sort of stacking against other billboards. So they'll be a little bit more spaced out. And, existing billboards would have that 1,500-foot buffer on either side. So a good chunk of Highway 412 wouldn't even be eligible for additional billboards because of that. So.
Do we have a billboard rule now?
We do, but we don't have anything about spacing. It just says that they have to be on a vacant lot that's zoned commercial. And so what we've found is developers have gotten kind of clever because they realize they're sitting on some money. They split off an 8,000 square foot lot, which is the smallest lot you can get in commercial, and they put a billboard on it. And we actually seen that, I think, 2 different instances where people have done that just to get around our rules. And so I think this will help, if it's the board's pleasure to eliminate or lessen billboards, this 1,500 would help a lot with that. So,
Mayor?
So, yes.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
No, you first.
I was just going to say, is there anyone else that wanted to say anything? So you're up, Lisa.
Whatever you call it.
I appreciate you guys working on this, and I'm glad some of the bills did not go through. There's some bills that they're kind of restrictive, and some of them are kind of less government. So I think there's a lot to be looking at right now. But you mentioned in the state statute it was very black and white, and we've had a lot of our ordinances that have come up recently that are very black and white. Have we looked at the code to see if we can apply some wording that kind of softens that a little, because we're so restrictive that we're cutting our own throat sometimes?
Yes, ma'am. One of the things we're looking at is the location within the code, and this is not currently within the proposed UDC, and it's maybe added before we get to the final version. We are looking at areas where we can do exceptions to the ordinance, where there would be common sense applications. For example, recently we had an I-1 to I-1, I-1 to I-1 or an I-1 to I-2. Those are two industrial lots, and we have landscape buffers around those, for example. And when we find areas where we can do common sense application, then finding the ability to add an exception that could be applied either at the department head level or at the city administrator level can expedite the process and save the developer funds, which in turn in a lot of areas can relate to lower costs for the citizens of Siloam Springs.
And I would just, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add that we're going to make a careful consideration to not interfere with the current Board of Adjustment and the variance process, because there's already a variance process, so we're going to be looking at ways that these waivers or whatnot are not things that would otherwise require a variance, because we'll get ourselves in trouble with that, because there's definitely a lot of law on requiring variances in Board of Zoning Appeals or Board of Adjustments. So.
Right, following state statute.
Yes.
I noticed
absolutely.
when I was reading through the book, and I will be meeting with you. This is just one page. Is there any way whenever you're referring to state statute or you're referring to federal law that you can reference that state statute? Because the statute may change. It'll change within itself, though. It doesn't change to a whole new statute. So can we not reference that in the code?
I think when we make a reference in the ordinance to that state statute, yes, we can make an effort to
I got it lined
identify
out for
that.
you, if that makes it easier.
I don't.
Because it makes it easier if I'm going to look at state statute and our ordinance. Because even staff has found, I mean, we all, there's so much here that there's, one person cannot see everything. And so, you've found that state statute doesn't meet our ordinance because nobody knew. And it's hard to stay up with them. And, I mean, there's a lot of
I
changes.
think the territorial zoning jurisdiction was the best example of that. It changed almost every legislation since I've been in this career, and now it's gone.
The 1 mile radius?
Yes, it's going to go away. So
Being repealed.
It's being
Yeah.
repealed because the state statute has changed to
Right.
prohibit the city from having that extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. So in a lot of code, you've seen different references to mileage outside of the city. And right now, that mileage is about to turn to 0. It's been 5 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile. It's just, there's a lot of changes.
Right.
So I understand what you mean by it changes. So we need to reference those with the date.
One thing I would point out, I don't know if you have a copy of the big black book, the city's code of ordinances that's put out by the Muni Code, but they have,
to it.
yeah, the city clerk has one, of course, but on the very back there is a state statutes reference table that refers back to different parts of the code with state statutes. So definitely avail yourself of looking at that as well.
Well, if you look at it electronically, it would have a link then. I mean, if you was to look at your book, since it's already there, did you just link it?
Yeah, it's linked through like the ordinance numbers and such. I don't have that right in front of me, of course, but I just want to make sure you are aware that that was already in our code book.
Yeah, it'd be nice just so whenever you're reading through this and you tell me a section that I have to follow, that I also make sure I follow all the state and federal.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Then Ben and Chris, we are at 6:20. If you have nothing else, Christina, do you have any final comments? No? Yes, Chris.
I did have one follow-up on the billboard. I know that
Yes, sir.
we're running out of time because we have a regularly scheduled meeting. The 1,500 feet came from the city of Conway. They do, and if you want to see what that example looks like, then that billboard requirement is used along the interstate in the city of Conway, so you can see that spacing. So anytime you're driving through that over the next few months, when you're driving past the city of Conway, that's a 1,500-foot buffer between each of those billboards.
Thank you. That's good information. So with that, I will ask if I have a motion. No, I don't need a motion. I will declare that we are adjourned from our workshop, and we will reconvene at 6:30. Thank you.
Just.
There is always a good thing.
Call to order the Siloam Springs Board of Directors meeting for May 20th, 2025. Roll call.
Burns.
Here?
Hunt.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Blair.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask if you would please stand with me, and we will have Director Carroll lead us in a word of prayer, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Father, today we have an opportunity to say thank you for our very lives, for the breath we breathe, for the safety that you have provided. Father, we thank you for the resources that you have provided to allow us to take these next steps as we've had some weather. And we've also been able to see the sunshine. We thank you for that. Thank you for this evening, for the opportunity we have to discuss and decide issues with our city, and that we can do this with common sense. We can do it knowing that you have laid the path straight, and may we follow. We thank you for a wonderful evening. We thank you for the spring. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask that anyone that has an electronic device, please silence that so we don't have an interruption during our meeting. And thank you for that. And at this time, we will move to our public input time. I would ask if there is anyone here that would like to address this board on an item that is not a regularly scheduled item on the agenda. Just come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Rebecca Wyatt, 1109 East Jewel Street. Madam Mayor and Board of Directors. I asked a few meetings ago if, concerning the Unified Development Code, if we could have like a public input time. And after the board workshop today, I talked to Chris Paxton and Ben Rhodes, and they said that they would be willing to, during the stakeholders roundtable on June 9th, is that correct? That's correct. That they were going to look at maybe having that meeting here in this room, and they would record it. It wouldn't be live, but they would probably have it on the website by the following day or two, right? Does that sound right, Chris?
Chris? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we will work with the city administrator and ensure that we organize that so it can be publicly available.
I have been asking so that the public can hear people that are like stakeholders and know what they're doing. We could hear their comments back and forth. So that would really be nice for the transparency. So that would be June 9th, and really appreciate that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Lisa.
I'd like to read something for the chamber, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
This is from Lindsay. She's not able to make it tonight, and so she texted a couple of us, and so I told her I would read off, not the whole thing, but I'll try to go through it really quick. I wanted to take the time to give you all an update on the 51st Annual Dogwood Festival. We had 3 beautiful days, and our downtown was the place to be for sure. This year, in light of the tragic events that have happened throughout the country, at-large gatherings, we work closely with the Siloam Springs Police Department and the Siloam Springs Fire Department to ensure the festival was safe as possible. Meetings began in September with city leadership and emergency personnel, and we made several significant changes to the event as a result. 1, closing Mount Olive to through traffic. 2, closing Broadway Street and adding booths down that area. 3, extending the perimeter of the closed roads and adding immovable barricades to the entry points of the festival. In the light of these changes, we sent out a survey to the community as well as our downtown business owners and our vendors to get the feedback on these changes. While it may never be convenient to own a business in downtown during the Dogwood Festival, we want to listen and adjust where we can. I've listed a few highlights from the survey below. Full survey results are included, they included them through the board of directors. I'm sure if you want a copy of the full survey results, you can ask the chamber for a copy. 98% of the community attendees felt safe at the festival. 90% of community attendees liked Mount Olive being closed. 90% of community attendees liked the addition of booths on Broadway Street. 50% community attendees said that they went into a downtown business or restaurant while they were at the festival. And 66% of business owners saw an increase in foot traffic in comparison to a normal weekend. According to Placer AI data, we had 32,354 attendees at the Dogwood Festival this year. This data is based on cell phones that are located within the footprint of the festival for at least 25 minutes. Based on this number and the information collected through our community survey on the dollars spent at the festival, we can estimate that the 51st Annual Dogwood Festival had approximately a $3 million economic impact just through dollars spent at the festival. This does not include dollars spent at hotels, gas stations, restaurants, and other places throughout town. Overall feedback on the changes has been overwhelmingly positive. We would like to publicly give our thanks to Chief Miller, Chief Kendall, Deputy Chief Spicer, Deputy Chief Jackson, Captain Fine, and Lieutenant Bartley for the time and energy they put into the festival this year, as well as all the SSPD and SSFD staff that worked extra hours throughout the weekend. The SSPD also took the lead on parking for our downtown business owners and residents, which was invaluable, and made many of these changes less of a burden to those impacted the most by the changes.
Thank you, Lisa. And I'm assuming that all of the directors received that email with the information. So, and as Lisa stated, I'm sure that they would be glad to give you a copy of that survey so that everyone could see what the input was from those that attended. So, thank you, Lisa. So, with that, is there anyone else? If not, is there anyone that would like to address the board on an item that is on our consent agenda? There is not, so we will move on then to the consent agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes, May 6, 2025. Item B, purchase type 2 surface material, asphalt, and tack oil, Public Works Department, Street Division, from Grant Garrett Excavating Incorporated, $99,400. C, Resolution 20-25, setting hearing date for easement vacation, 311 North Simon Sager Avenue. Item D, Resolution 21-25, setting hearing date for easement vacation, 407 and 505 Buffalo Gap Drive. Directors, is there anything that you would like to have removed for separate consideration? If there is not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is approved. Consent agenda as presented. Next, we will move on to our ordinances. Ordinance 25-14, third reading, amending section 98.65 of the City Municipal Code, Power Cost Adjustment. Phil, that would be you, and this is an ordinance that was tabled from our May 6th regular meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Phil Stokes, Electric Director. This is our third reading, and we're available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir. Directors, comments or questions for Phil?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
have we had any comments, concerns since the last meeting?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-14 on its third reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Christina?
Ordinance number 25-14, an ordinance amending Article 2 of Chapter 98, Section 65 of the Siloam Springs City Code by amending power cost adjustment.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 25-14?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Ordinance 25-14 is adopted. Next is ordinance 25-16, first reading, amending section 02-10 of the City Municipal Code, establishing a city public services department. And this is also tabled from our May 6th meeting. Christina?
This has to do with making corrections to the departments and how they are set up. Last meeting, a org chart was requested and provided to the board on where staff intends to go. And so we're requesting that the changes that were provided in the most recent update are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Brad?
Off topic, don't correct me, are we going to do item F on contracts and approvals?
I had that same
I
question.
know it's bugging us. And then, let's get back to topic. I'm doing I have some house issues after the recent storm, so my printer's down, and I think you guys can provide a hard copy of that flow chart. And that flow chart shows it in there. I appreciate you. It just makes sense for accountability as we restructure, and it lets the public know who we're contacting and how that information flows. And the key thing is from my standpoint, is as when we look at doing these things, I just want to have accountability from top to bottom. And it's an old saying, you just had a workshop on it where they flipped the pyramid around. We've been the three-legged stool. We could go on about accountability, but I won't bore you with the details. So anyway, I appreciate the work and the information. It's real clean. It makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-16? There is not. So do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-16 on its first reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Christina?
Ordinance number 25-16, an ordinance amending section 02-10 of the City Municipal Code, amending City Community Services Department.
Thank you. And Brad, to answer your questions, I apologize. My copy does not have item F, or F as the approval for the AMI. We will go back and get that as soon as we get finished with our ordinance. Thank you, sir. So next is ordinance 25-17, first reading, vacation of a utility easements, 3017 North Hico Street. Looks like Chris?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not Megan Thomas, current planner. She is on vacation, so I am filling in for her tonight. I did know that there was a couple of concerns from some of the board members about this item relative to the stub out to the north, which is an access easement, and that will not be affected by this. What we have is a project location at 3017 North Hico Street, and it's a request to vacate an unused utility easement on Lot 3 of the Clifford subdivision. You can see that in the hatched area about 3/4 of the way to the south side of this drawing. That hatched area is being removed because this is from a lot line adjustment. The lot line from this lot moved a little bit further to the south, I believe, which makes it where this utility easement that used to be adjacent to a property boundary is no longer necessary. You can also see that there are some other utility easements that were a part of that lot that are still in place to ensure that there's future needs being met. We did not have any additional comments or questions from the public that I'm aware of, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Directors, comments or questions? There is not. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-17? There is not. Do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-17 on its first reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. We will then circle back to, I also didn't have our February financials listed, so Christina, do you have, and you want to read this title?
Yes, thank you. Ordinance number 25-17, an ordinance vacating and abandoning utility easements at 3017 North Hico Street.
Thank you, ma'am. So with that, February financials, is there any comments or anything you want to make on that?
I'm just going to say that they're included with the agenda, and if you review them and have questions or concerns, please just let me know. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So with that, we will look at contracts and approvals. Approval, additional AMI meter purchase and change out for GRDA payment increase. Phil?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. We were made aware that there was a need to accelerate our change-out because of the new billing system going in. And so we needed to kind of have that in place by October. With our growth and our challenges out there, we would not be able to get that project done in time for the billing revision. And so GRDA has agreed to fund this project with the present funding we're having with our AMI meters. They have allowed us to borrow money from them without interest for 5 years. And so we approached them and said, hey, we need some more money, and also we need to hire some people to help us install this. And so they've agreed to include that. And so that's what you see in your numbers there. They've agreed to fund that for a 5-year period without any interest. And so we're asking you to approve this so we can get it done in time for our billing software to take place and everything works smoothly.
Perfect, thank you. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Phil, the way I'm reading this, it looks like we're able to outsource some work so that the electric department can continue doing what they're doing without interruption. But the pricing to per unit of putting those in looks favorable. And I just want to make sure I'm reading that right, because this looks like a win-win.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the approval for this change? There is not. Do I have a motion to approve for the additional AMI meter purchase with GRDA?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler. Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Phil, thank you. So next, we will have our administrator's report. Christina?
Expenditures in excess of $30,000 include $42,350 for Cromwell Architects, design development, and for the utilities facility. Let's just put it this way. It's for the warehouse on the south Lincoln property, which the board has already approved the architect. And there are no expenditures per Resolution 11-25. This week kicks off our fourth Friday events at Memorial Park for 2025. You can join us from 4 to 8 p.m. for superhero-themed children's activities, tug-of-war challenges between the police and fire departments, an inflatable obstacle course, photo booth, touch-a-truck, and more. The Uncrowned Kings will begin their concert at 6:30 p.m. Additionally, I would like to say thank you to all of city staff. They've been all hands on deck during and following this week's severe weather. Fire and police departments set up the weather center and closely monitored conditions and ensured that the public was notified timely. The electric department swiftly restored power in affected areas, and crews from streets, parks, and electric have worked to clear all of the debris, and we've even suspended recycling this week so that pickup for the debris can be focused on. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Christina. So with that, we will move to our director's reports. Very quickly, I would just like to echo what Christina has said. I know Megan has put out a thank you and a shout out to our staff and to our community on our website and others. But I want to echo that. What a great community we have. Whenever it was time to go, they went. I received a notice that our Emergency Weather Operations Center was activated. They were ready. They were our electric department, our street department, everybody. And our citizens also responded. They were patient. They were making sure that we knew where there was an issue so that we could get to them quickly and help them. And it's a blessing to live in a community where that is the case. So thank you to our staff, to our community. We are blessed. So with that, I will move to the directors. Mindy, if you would start for us, please, and David, if you will finish us out.
Okay, I will echo the thank yous as well. It was neat seeing I appreciated the post that Megan continued to create on social media just to let us know of what was going on. I especially like the picture of our two chiefs hard at work. It just kind of helps us to remember that we're all people too. We're all working on this together. And I just appreciate all the work. I think it was a good call to hold off on recycling this week so that we can have that time to clean up the mess, which there is quite a bit of a mess. Streets are green these days with the leaves. Leaves were looking so pretty on the trees, and now they're all on the streets, but that's okay. Speaking of streets, I want to thank the street department. Exciting to see the work being done on the Bird Streets and on Glenwood, Greenwood. I know, is it Glenwood or Greenwood that's getting the most of the work? One of those. It is going all the way around.
There's a portion of Greenwood that's concrete.
Okay.
We'll tie on to that portion, so all of the asphalt portion is getting redone.
Wonderful, because that's another area that just really needed some work. Back to the storms, just real quickly. So I was watching the news this morning, and they were just reporting on all the storms all over, and the meteorologist talked about a particular place where the outdoor warning systems did not go off, and there were citizens that were concerned about it, and she just reminded us that the outdoor warning system should not be our first go-to for weather updates. And that was kind of brought home firsthand by me, knowing someone who, while the sirens were going off, she was not able to hear them because she doesn't hear very well. And so that was just kind of another reminder to me that while those are important, I'm glad they're working. We need to have other ways of determining what the weather is doing to be more prepared. And finally, I just appreciated the training that we were all invited to last week on customer service. I thought that was very appropriate, that we were reminded that we're really all customers, each other, but also importantly, very importantly, our citizens. We have a lot of customers in our citizens, and just in each other, and just the need to treat each other with respect, do what we can to solve problems, be proactive. So I just really appreciated that training, and I appreciate being invited to it. So the participation was great. I love seeing the involvement. So thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Ken?
Yeah, just real quick. Sunday afternoon, I was not in town when all the fun and excitement was going on. Got home late Sunday night and turned onto my newly repaved street. Thank you, it's wonderful. And saw the prettiest green shag carpet from one end of the street to the other. And I thought, these street guys have really been outdoing themselves. But then Monday, through a couple of phone calls for some other things, talking to staff, I know you guys have been working hard. Everybody has been working hard, and it does not go unappreciated. So thank you very much, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Sarah. Betsy?
I wanted to echo the great job on the cleanup. I've had citizens reaching out and just saying how impressed they are with how quickly the limbs, just everything has been taken care of. They don't remember when it's been handled this quickly, and it's not often people reach out to me just to say great things. So awesome job. And I also had some others reach out to me. A culvert was being replaced in a neighborhood, and so people were limited access to their homes for a little bit, and staff made sure everybody got door hangers, and everybody appreciated that. So that was wonderful. And then if you know somebody who watches the board meetings on the Cox channel, it is out. It was out the last board meeting. It's out this board meeting. And supposedly they're hoping by tomorrow, but that would be at the earliest that it will be back on. So if you get questions about it, because I did, that's the issue. Obviously, if you're watching it on YouTube. But if you know anybody who watches it on Cox, hopefully it will be back on by the next meeting. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Betsy. And Christina, you had
I was just going to
an
echo
update.
that, exactly that. They've given us a timeline to have it back on, so hopefully it will be back up and running.
Thank you. Lisa?
I want to say I agree with all the thank yous to the staff. The staff has always been amazing, are always going to be amazing. I appreciate living in a city that we have such amazing staff. I would like to say I've noticed people putting their debris out. They're putting it in the drainage, where the water flows. So if we have another rain, what happens is, guess what? It clogs up the. Was you going to make a comment on that?
I can, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is unlawful to dispose of yard debris, including storm debris, in the drainage system. It is against state law.
Well, they're putting in their front yard where that, and I don't think people realize that
That's
that's
correct.
considered, and I think maybe an education tool, but I've seen it a lot. And I've unclogged my drain a lot. And so, because we're at the end, we get it all. And so our driveway gets washed away every time it floods. So because of all that comes down on us. And I wanted to share, so I have this meeting and next meeting. on June 13th, Friday, June 13th, the Siloam Springs Boots, Badges, and Bandages Blood Drive. This is a competition, I think, between the police and fire. I won't tell you which one I'm going to sponsor, but I'm sure we know who Brad's going to sponsor. But if you can, get out and give blood for the, it's in the library, in the meeting rooms, Friday, June 13th, from 12 to 6 p.m.
Perfect. Thank you. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. School's going to be out soon. I think the pool opens, this weekend, or we're just right there. It's not coming, it's here upon us. And Friday, we get to kick all that off with our fourth Friday. Looking forward to this. I know much work is put into it. I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but to me, it's all about the food and the music. But notice the food was first. But we do get to enjoy that. I'm looking forward to that. Concerning our weather, it's been, I can't say it's been a pleasure per se, but it's been really good to see how the city has responded. Because not only do we need to clean things up, but we have to make the roads accessible and make sure that we have electric to all the homes. And there's so much more that goes into what you may see from the storm, and we make it look like it's easy, but I imagine it's not quite as easy as we see. So thank you for that. I do look forward to any updates that we may have concerning the contract or the job description of our city administrator position whenever those do come available. And one of the things that we as board members, one of our first objective is if not the first, is the safety of our city. And it's good to know that we're in some good hands. We're in some trained hands. And we don't know it because we live it every day, but all you need to do is move somewhere else, and you may realize what we have here, but we have something good here, and I'm thankful for it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Reed. Brad?
Let me get 3 broken records things out of the way real quick. So resolution number 05-24, item 7. I'm requesting to strike pagers from that. And we either enforce or change the cell phone standard. We require city employees to be held to a standard. When they violate policy, we spank them. We either give them a written, we ask department heads to do that. I'm asking the same for us. Either we make the change or we stay by the ordinance. So we need to address that. I think it's important right now for accountability. I'll go on with my quality of life funds that are coming available. I think as a board, we need to look at the American Legion Hall, the community building. That's an area where we totally agree that needs to be addressed. Once again, take a look at Sager Creek right now. It's sad. And every time we have these big storms, it's just getting worse. So the cost will go up. I would recommend we follow the Sager Creek Advisory Committee recommendation, go to some public input sessions. I think we can do that in-house, but it will take time, and I think it's totally doable, and I think we all agree. We may disagree on a few particular things, but I think we all agree. In additional, there's a little unknown steps coming off South College Street that drop down to Sager Creek, and it was established in 1911. I walk it quite frequently. It's in bad shape. We've gotten rid of most of our springs through development, not any curse of our own. We got rid of all our swinging bridges that I remember as a young child coming here once a month from Highway 10, right? Remember the swinging bridges? And so I just struggle watching these decaying. There's a very large tree, and there's some beautiful graffiti. I won't go into details, but use your imagination. It is there. But these little elements in there, I just hate. They're so attainable for us to make better. And I just think it's just our time as a board and for the next generation to tidy those things up and get back on track. And then my last harp, continuing harp, and you're going to hear me until we start addressing it, is our wastewater management plant improvements. They just had another breakdown. Bentonville is about 180 million or so. I mean, when you start running the numbers, if we don't start looking at this, addressing that and looking at what the real numbers are and what direction we have to go with a bond issue or whatever it's going to be, if we don't address that soon, we are going to be in a very bad position. Now I'll move away from that. The chamber, love the chamber email, love the community survey, love the graphs. Anytime they're making change, it shows what worked, what needs to be improved, and that was a great email. I'm sure it's on their site, and it needs to get out there to any stakeholders that have any questions or concerns. That's just, it's great information. They did a fantastic job. And then city employees continue to meet or exceed public expectation. So that's always been, on the fire side, that's always been what we're supposed to do. And I'm going to give a great example, numerous trees. I think this is, since I've lived in Siloam, I would call this the most significant storm damage we've had in the middle of town. We've hit the outsides, but there's a lot of old trees down, a lot of trees on homes. How we didn't get a fatality on that is beyond my imagination. But South Maxwell Street, Sunday evening, large tree pulled up by the roots on a home and pulled up a sewer line. And guess where that crew that was on call that weekend on a Sunday night? So, you know, they're deep in sewage, and that's the kind of work these folks are doing. The guys are in the EOC, they're out there doing the stuff, but that's the kind of work that's going on out there, and you know, it's nasty, it's gritty, and so anytime I hear a complaint about minor stuff, I'm probably a little firmer than most on my concern level because I see that. And then I've always referred to complaints to the ward member. You need to contact that ward representative because I'm not going to be very kind to you. So keep up the good work, and I know there's more work to be done, but another fine job. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. David?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, I'm sorry, Betsy.
Just, Brad, I agree with Brad about the cell phone thing. I use mine because I can't see the little things up there on the screens. Can we add that to the next agenda?
Yes, Christina, make note of that, please, and we'll put that on there.
No. And I forgot, sometimes I feel like I probably mentioned the electric department too much because I've lived other places, and ours is second to none. And I'm friends with the wife of one of the employees. He's older than I am, and he left for work Monday morning and came back on Tuesday. So that's the kind of work they do. They are amazing. So thank y'all again.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Betsy.
Oh, sorry.
David?
I was asking Brad about the cell phone resolution you were talking about. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to thank the staff for the UDC workshop today. I do believe that all of our UDC meetings, the workshops, stakeholder meetings on June 9th, everything should be treated as any other workshop, planning meeting, et cetera, for public viewing on YouTube and Cox. And we need to make arrangements to be videoing those out as well as recording them for YouTube. I wanted to let the public know that if they received an accidental robocall from GRDA that the city of Siloam was considering doing rolling blackouts, that it was inadvertent, the city had nothing to do with it, it was an accident, and please don't think the city is planning to do anything like this. It was really bad timing right after the hailstorm, but it was accidental, and I just wanted to reassure the public that this was not meant to frighten anyone, and it was completely surprising to everyone here. I want to thank the chamber for the report and the memo that Lindsay sent out on the Dogwood Festival. It could not have been more thorough, and I really appreciate the time that they put into gathering that information. I will thank not just those departments that were involved, but all of our city personnel for coming together recently, department heads, all the employees coming together to support our interim city administrator, Christina, and that means a lot to her. It means a lot to us, but also just to have her first couple of weeks staffed to have the biggest hailstorm I've ever seen in my life. It shows the dedication of our employees going out there to pick up the pieces from destruction. And we all see what Mother Nature and things that we have no control over can do. I'm like Brad, I'm thankful but surprised that we did not have more personal, physical, human beings hurt because of how big, I mean, these were golf ball size at my house, and it was just something I've never seen ever except on videos or television shows. So our electric and street department and the parks department getting out and responding to the public. You can read it on Facebook, but you also hear it from people complimenting. This is why the city of Siloam Springs staff has got such a great reputation with the citizens of our city for fast response, being able to fix things that many people might look at and shake their head and say it's unfixable. And so I appreciate it, and I know our public greatly, greatly appreciates it. I want to thank, where was it? I had something else. Well, the only other thing on the emergency, we were glad that our outdoor warning system went off in advance and continued. I still just don't like the sound of it sounding like a European police car that I've seen in the Pink Panther movies and things like that. But I don't know if there's anything can be done about that. But I recall, 12, 13 years ago, having the biggest snow I've ever seen, about 4 foot, 3.5, 4 foot high. And now to see the biggest hail I've ever seen, it's just, we are fortunate. But it's wonderful living in a community where so much care is taken just looking after each other. And it's greatly appreciated by me, and I know so many others. Madam Mayor, I think that's all, and I will make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.